Highly suspicious. That's one assessment of the computer network failure that grounded all U.S. air traffic last month. The main reason? Canada experienced a similar outage the very same day. Cybersecurity experts are warning that breaches and shutdowns of critical computer systems are imminent and that our government needs to act now before it's too late. Gary Lane reports.
Human error or a cyber attack? That was the major question after the computer network failure that recently grounded all U.S. air traffic for the first time since 9/11. While the FAA insists human error led to the outage, Canada experienced a computer outage on the very same day.
This is what I would categorize as highly suspicious, because these systems have redundancy, they have backups, they have ways to be able to recover. So when I hear that there was a database error, and then as you said, there were two different systems that went down on the same time, I'm like, okay, saying it was human error keeps everyone calm. But in reality, it really does sound like a cyber attack and that something went wrong that was unplanned for.
When looking for likely suspects in such a cyber attack, Russia would be a strong possibility because of its war against Ukraine and the help the U.S. and Canada are giving the Ukrainians.
Russia lately has always been on the list, but we also forget that China is also a big target, especially when it comes to critical infrastructure. And there's also a lot of freelance cyber adversaries that are out there that are really big on ransomware, extortion, and things like that. So from my standpoint, it sounds like what we call a test attack, where they wanted to test and just see how vulnerable the systems were, whether they could get in, and how long it would take them to recover. So to me, the critical things for the FAA right now is to really figure out if it was a cyber attack, to figure out how they got in and make sure they fix it, because this sounds like it's going to be one of many attacks in our future.
Given the FAA software is 30 years old, Cole and other cybersecurity experts say an update is long overdue. Daniel McCoy is an aviation expert with the Wichita Business Journal.
Certainly, they'll have to take a good hard look at this system, and they'll have to identify any weaknesses or build in redundancies or a full upgrade of some kind, because this was obviously problematic. But given that they were able to lift it in a few hours, you see what just a few hours does to the network when it's down.
Although President Biden signed a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill into law, Cole believes some critical network issues must be considered, not only for air traffic control, but other vital national computer systems as well.
When you're dealing with critical infrastructure, like air traffic control, utilities, and even hospitals, uptime availability is critical. And anytime you patch or update a system, there's a chance it could crash. I'm sure you've had it at your home when you did an update, or they said, oh, it's just a basic patch. All of a sudden, things don't work and things stop operating. So it sounds bizarre, but the more critical a system, the less we update it, the less we patch it, and the more vulnerable it becomes.
So how likely then is another shutdown or cyber attack, not only against an antiquated FAA computer network, but other critical government networks? Just how vulnerable are they?
Unfortunately, they are very vulnerable. For that reason you said, these are old systems. They're not typically updated. They're not typically patched. And the big problem is they're starting to be interconnected. And that's where the problem comes in. These systems were designed and built to be what we call in cybersecurity an air gap, which means completely isolated from any other system or the internet. But what's been happening over the last year or two is they're interconnecting these to the internet and other systems to make them easier to use. And because of that, this to me is just the beginning. And this year we're going to see a lot more of these attacks happening because of that.
All due to COVID-19 shutdowns and work from home. Now the new normal in our society.
And instead of us weaning away from that, now that people are coming back in the office, we're actually doing more and more interconnectivity, which is great for ease of use, but is one of the worst possible things we can do for cybersecurity. This creates a huge national security problem.
Although the FAA says it has made revisions to prevent a corrupt file from damaging the flight backup database, cybersecurity experts say Congress and the president still need to urgently address vulnerabilities to safeguard the nation from more devastating attacks in the future. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Well, it's chilling to think that there was a cyber attack simultaneously with the Canadian system and the U.S. system. That's clearly not accidental. What do we do as a country? Well, we need to make sure that we're updated all across the board. And whether it's our power grid, our water systems, our airport traffic, we have enemies in the world that want to take us down and definitely want to disrupt our economy. There's a whole new level of warfare now, whether it's space warfare, cyber warfare, or just old-fashioned terrorism. It's all happening simultaneously. And where is our government, and what are we spending our time on? Are we trying to solve our problems, or are we just trying to win elections? Well, that's a good question to ask every